What's going on, guys? So today we're going to be talking a little about the electrical aspect of the manual swap. Like 95% of the swap is completely mechanical, just swapping components, but a little bit of it does have to do with some of the electronics, and so we're going to go over that. Basically just give you guys a brief idea of what to expect when you're doing your swap. It's really not a lot of wiring and it's really not that difficult, so it's pretty simple stuff, but I still think that I should cover it because some of you guys might sort of be wondering about that. And just have some general ideas, and I'll just clear a couple things up. So as for actual wiring, when you take out the automatic shifter assembly, you know, your PRND, the actual assembly that allows you to shift into drive and reverse and all that stuff, that does actually have an electrical connection going to it. Basically to tell the computer if you're in park or in neutral, drive, reverse, whatever. Basically so your reverse lights will come on and like you can't start the car and drive, your neutral safety switch, all that stuff is wired through that shifter. We're going to be messing with the computer a little bit, but we're not going to do any wiring with the computer. So in the front corner of the car on the passenger side, there's a little compartment, and we're going to open it up and we're going to pull this guy out. This is your automatic transmission computer. There are a couple screws on the back. We're going to open that up and we're going to pop this guy out. This is your automatic transmission control module, basically a little computer. So we're just going to pop that out, slap it all back together. As far as a lot of the pins in that automatic transmission assembly, taking this out will like void most of it, because some of it's for like the manual, you know, you go into 432, it'll tell the computer. If you put it into sport mode or economy mode, that all goes through this guy, and it goes through a lot of the wiring in that transmission harness. We are going to be messing with that a little bit. And so for the initial like first drive, to make sure everything is working properly, so this is basically just like a little piece of wire with the end stripped off. I got a couple of them here. We're really only going to need one. And so we're basically just going to strip the end off to show some copper, and we're basically just going to be jumping some of the pins with this. So we're testing things like getting the car to start. You need to jump 2 pins to get the car to turn over, basically bypass the neutral safety switch. So we're going to be testing that out with this. We can also test to see the reverse lights, if our reverse lights work. So we're going to pop this into 2 different pins on the reverse light, and then the reverse light should light up. And then from there we're going to get into basically just soldering and stuff like that. So for the initial first drive, I'm going to have this in sort of sitting in the connector, jumping the 2 pins I need to get the car to work, basically just to test it. The last thing I want to do is like put the entire center console back together and realize I rewired it, or I wired it incorrectly, so now I got to pull the whole center console apart just to wire it. So just to make sure everything is working properly, I'm going to go ahead and do like 1 or 2 test drives just with the plug in, just sort of chilling there. And after we confirm that it runs, we're basically from there, we're just going to cut the wires in, splice them together. We might run a clutch switch, something like that. For the same deal with the reverse lights, you're going to want to confirm that the 2 pins are for the reverse lights by initially jumping it with that. Once we've confirmed that, we're going to want to get something like this. So this is the actual connector that will plug into the side of the transmission to initialize the reverse lights, basically. Now, plastic connector itself, it's just a connector. So basically the wire, I got a couple wires for it. It basically uses 2 of these wires, and they don't come together, but I will leave the part number for both. I picked them up earlier today and it was like $2 for everything, so it's really not that pricey. And these guys basically just slide in there, clip it in, and then we're going to plug that into the side of the transmission. We're going to run these lines up, and then we're basically going to cut the end off of them, and then we're going to splice and solder them into that transmission harness. So basically whenever we go into reverse, the reverse lights will work. It's really not that hard. Just strip the ends off of the harness wire, wrap them together. You can even wrap it with electrical tape, or I'm probably going to solder mine and put some heat shrink on it just for longevity. So right here I have the manual pedal assembly, and here's the clutch pedal, and that's actually the clutch switch, and it's got a couple wires. They got snipped. So basically from here we're just going to cut 2 of these wires, splice it in with some loose wire, run it up to that center console, and then splice it in. It's pins 7 and 11, don't quote me on that, to get the car to start. So the convertible here, when I manual swapped it, I just basically jumped it and spliced the wires together so I can start the car with the clutch out in gear. I've never really had a problem with that. I always push the clutch in when I start it anyways. But I'm probably going to end up running a clutch switch in the sedan. So just for safety, I'm probably going to wire that in, and you guys will get a more detail on that. That's basically it, and I believe this should get the cruise control to work. I'm not super sure about that. And once we wire in our reverse lights, that'll be it, and the whole thing will be done. The only thing to really note after that is you'll have two lights on. The first light you're going to have on is the transmission light. It's going to be a hard light. So the manual E36s don't even have a light in that spot in the dash. So basically the cure to that is you pull the instrument cluster out and you just pop the bulb out. And we're going to do that. Really no need for that transmission light. It's basically just for the automatic. And since you don't have an automatic in, you don't really need it. The manual ones don't have it. So we're just going to pull it out and get rid of it. The second one you're going to have is a check engine light, because the ECU is no longer getting any signal from the transmission. It's going to throw a check engine light. Now that's not going to affect drivability in any way. It's going to drive normally. You're just going to have a hard code basically in your ECU, and that can be an issue when you're trying to pass smog or just other things like maybe one of your O2 sensors failed or your mass airflow sensor is going on its way out or something like that. And you won't even know because it'll throw a check engine light, but your check engine light's already on. So you're not really going to know unless you pull codes every now and then to see if something's wrong. You know what I mean? So if the check engine light's on and it throws a real check engine light, you're not going to know. So you're going to want to get that taken care of. There's a couple ways to do that. The first one is to go get the ECU in your car reflashed for a manual. That should get rid of the code. I've heard of some people actually buying a different ECU, buying a manual ECU, and then syncing the EWS up to that, and that will work fine. And I've heard of people actually going in with some like scanner tools and actually deleting the code right out of the ECU. So I'm not really sure which approach I'm going to take. Here in California we do have smog, and the manual swap really has nothing to do with how the engine produces emissions. It's all basically just the whole smog thing is basically the whole motor. It has really nothing to do with the transmission or the rest of the drivetrain. So that code really doesn't do much as far as smog, but it will fail you if you do have a check engine light on, because they do check the OBD system for errors or codes like that. So past smog, basically I'm going to have to get that code written out. Which way I'm going to do that, I'm not too sure right now. I will update you guys when I get to that step. But as far as doing the wiring, all this stuff for the swap, it's really not that difficult. Just some basic wiring and soldering, and I'll show you guys exactly how to do that when we get into the swap itself. But I just want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up on a game plan of what we're actually going to be doing with the swap as far as wiring. So wiring the clutch switch, wiring the reverse lights, pulling a chip out of the computer. It's pretty simple stuff, but it is necessary for the swap to work properly. So alright, that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep it fresh, and I will see you guys later.